Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Our talk is on Bhakta Nag Mahashaya. Now, the word Bhakta is normally translated as a devotee, but there was a scholar called Nayanakar of Sri Lanka, Buddhist scholar. He said that there is no word in English which can convey the idea totally of the word bhakti as is used in India. Normally it is devotion, your translator is devotion, but it is much more than that. Sometimes it is your translator is faith, but your bhakti means a total, you're totally attached to an ideal, spiritual ideal, and which becomes a way of life, which will lead you to the ultimate spiritual liberation. That is the totality of bhakti. Of course, Narada has said that sa tasmin parama prema rupa. Tasmin, in God, the highest kind of love. Now, so you see, this way, bhakta, so it is better that the word bhakta has been retained in the title of the talk, because bhakta, say, if you say devotee, it is not the totality of the thing. It is much more. Now, one of the things about Nag Mahashaya, his full name was Durgacharan Nag, that he did not compose any article, he did not say write any book, only there is a small pamphlet he published in his early teens. Apart from that, he did not compose anything. He did not compose songs like Mirabai, like Ramprasad, etc., or Kabir. So the only way to look at his life is through the anecdotes, which are extraordinary, because he was an extraordinary person. There has not been any other devotee of Ramakrishna whose bhakti was so much pronounced. So he is the crest jewel among the bhaktas of Ramakrishna. Now, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Premananda, Swami Turiyananda, Sri Ramakrishna himself, the Holy Mother, all of them have attested to the greatness of this soul, Nag Mahashaya. So, you see, in Chaitanya Deva has given the characteristics of a devotee. Tinadapi sunichena tarori vasavishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadaharihi. He is humbler than the grass. He's as patient as a tree. He himself is unassuming, but he gives honor to others. And he always remembers or chants the name of God or the glory of God. That is how the great Bhakta Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has described the characteristics. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 12th chapter, from 13th shloka onwards, a few shlokas give the characteristics of a bhakta. The first shloka there in the Bhagavad Gita, Adveshta Sarvabhutanang Mitra Karuna Evacha Nirmamo Nirahankara Samodukha Sukha Samusukha Dukkha Kshamihi. Now, it means that he has no malice towards any living being. Advishta Sarvabhutanam. Friendliness and compassion is in him. Mitra Karuna Evacha. Nirmamo. He does not have possessiveness. Nirahankara. His ego is almost nil. And he maintains equanimity in pleasure and pain. And he has forgiveness, does not take offense, yes, if done by others to him. So this is how the Gita begins. If you go through the life of Nag Mahashaya, you will find all these things. Now let us enter, as you have said, that the only way is through the anecdotes, but we shall begin with the story of his life. He was born in 1846 in a village called Devbhog, which is 30 kilometers south of Dhaka, which is the capital of Bangladesh now. Now, in his youth, when he was not only youth, he was a child then, 8-year-old child, he lost his mother. An aunt brought him up. Even as a child, he used to see in his dreams many gods and goddesses. That was, that was a mark of his greatness. That means he was a rare soul. Even in play or in fun, he used not to tell a lie. Once some mischievous boys wanted him to tell a lie so that they will win a game. He refused. So they became angry and dragged him through the rice field. You say, if you drag someone through the rice field, you have bruises all over the body. Those of you who have experience of this in villages, they will understand. Especially for a child, it is much more the pain because the skin is soft. He returned home, but he did not complain against anyone. He went to the village school, which gave courses up to the 8th grade, and then he got admitted to Dhaka Normal School, which means he had to go many kilometers on foot every day to the school and return. A school teacher saw it and he proposed that I shall give you free of charge board and lodging. He refused, saying, "No, sir, I do not feel any difficulty in traversing this distance." The teacher was amazed. So these are the signs of his greatness as a child. Then, at the age of 15, according to the custom of those days, he was married to a girl of 11 years. We call it marriage because legally it is marriage, but actually it is betrothal. After the marriage, the bride would go back to her parents and he would come back to the husband's house only when she is grown up. Both are grown up. So that was the custom. So it is said that Nag Mahashaya, when he used to be in the vogue, and the wife was there, he used to spend the night on the branches of a tree to avoid the company of the wife. The idea is the goal of chastity, which is important in spiritual life. That means, though he was outwardly a householder, actually he was a monk. So that was his life. Fortunately or unfortunately, you see, the wife passed away very soon. And the passing away of the wife, you see, provoked in him the idea of, uh, that means, I should say, it impressed upon him the impermanence of human life. He began to pass many hours in the cremation ground, began to think about the impermanence of human life, about the goal of human life, etc. That is, his mind was totally turned in the direction of spirituality. His father, Dindayal, was alarmed, and like average fathers, thought of curing his son through another marriage. In the meantime, you see, Nag Mahashaya had come to the city where his father was employed in a commercial firm, got admitted to the Campbell Medical School, but he discontinued after some 18 months. Thereafter, he began to study homeopathy under a renowned homeopath of Calcutta. And even as a student, he manifested his great power in diagnosing the patients. And one of the family members of his father's employer had an incurable disease, and he treated it. And out of gratitude, they offered him a silver casket full of rupees. He refused this. He said, "It is too much." He said, "My fee should be rupees 20 only." His father rebuked him that if you go on like this, you will have never any great your income. You may be a good homeopath, but you will not earn money. Yes. He replied that you have taught me to walk in the path of righteousness, in the path of dharma. How can I demand much more than rupees 20? You say, I cannot. So, as I have told you, that his father thought of giving him in marriage a second time, and he had already selected a bride. Nag Mahashaya refused. He said, already you have married me and the wife died. You are going to bring misfortune to the daughter of another family. Why do you do it? So, seeing that the son was reluctant to marry, Dindal agreed to postpone the whole thing, rather to cancel the whole thing. But then the thought came to him that he would lose his lineage. And this thought made him tremendously perturbed. He stopped eating, was weeping secretly. Seeing this, reluctantly Nag Mahashaya agreed to marry again. Before going to his village, he went to the river Ganga and prayed the mother, you are the purifier of all souls. If through marriage I get the dirt and the dust of this world, please wash them off me. So he was married again. Sharat Kamini was the name of the bride. And as usual, you see, Nag Mahashaya returned to Calcutta, leaving his newly-wed wife at home in Devbhog, and continued his, with his homeopathic profession. Then, in Calcutta, he became friendly with another devotee of the Brahma Samaj. His name was Suresh Chandra Datta. They became friendly. They used to talk about spiritual ideas. And this Datta, or Suresh Babu, one day gave him the news of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, as you know, he became known to the circle of, especially the university circle, the educated people of Calcutta from 1875, March 1875, when he met Keshav Chandra Sen. It must be soon after that, this event. So he was almost your 30 years old then, Nag Mahashaya. Immediately when he heard about these things, he wanted to go to Dakshineshwar, and both of them went there that day itself. They met Pratap Chandra Hatria, who told them the master had gone to Chandanagar and you please come another day. They were disappointed, they were about to leave Dakshineshwar when they found that from a room someone was beckoning to them, asking them to enter the room. This was nothing but Sri Ramakrishna himself. Sri Ramakrishna advised them that you live in the world like a mud fish. The mud fish lives in mud, but its skin is always shiny. So you should live in the world unattached, like the mud fish. And he sent them to the grove of Panchavati to meditate for some time. And after that, he himself showed them the different temples in Dakshineshwar. Before taking leave, he told them to come again and said that the relationship grows through frequent visits. So, this is the first contact with Nag Mahashaya. Next week they came again, these two friends, Suresh Babu and Nag Mahashaya. Sri Ramakrishna told them that he was very glad to see them and asked Durgacharan, that is Nag Mahashaya, to come and sit near him and told him affectionately, "My child, you have already attained a very high state, a very elevated state. Naturally, because one who is living like a monk, totally chaste, one whose mind is not possessed by the idea of amassing wealth, one who is so humble, so naturally that person will become spiritually elevated. So you see, this is a rare case when a devotee comes with such an exalted spirituality already in possession. So this is the life, beginning of his life as a bhakta. Now, the day by day, his the idea of attaining the spiritual heights, you see, grew in him. And one day he heard Sri Ramakrishna saying, it is very difficult for lawyers, for doctors, for brokers to attain God realization. Especially referring to the doctors, he said, if the mind is always on tiny drops of medicine, then how can you think of infinite? It is not possible. So Nag Mahashaya thought that this advice was meant for him. And that day itself, he went home, took his medicine box and the books, medicine books, and threw them to the river Ganga. So it is something like what Swami Ramakrishnananda, Shashi Maharaj did, you see. Being chastised by Sri Ramakrishna because he was engrossed in study of a Persian book. You see, Sri Ramakrishna said that one who is so much engrossed in study cannot attain God realization. So that day itself, he threw the books, and for 14 years, he did not touch his books. So it is like that. Now, ultimately, Sharatkamini, the wife of Nag Mahashaya, came to Calcutta to serve her husband and father-in-law. And her whole life is a nun's life, self-effacement, and your loving service, etc. She was, you see, this greatness of Nag Mahashaya was as if transmitted to this lady, Sharat Kamini. And to run the household of a saint is not very easy. We shall see it. And now, in the old age, you see, when Dindal became old, he thought of retiring. So he gave up his job and he talked with his employer, and the job was given to his son, Nag Mahashaya. And he went back to Devag, and short coming followed to serve the father-in-law. So Nag Mahashaya became, alone. He was living alone in Calcutta. But he could not continue his job. It was impossible because so much spiritually oriented that this work became a great torture. And his employer saw it. He understood it. So an arrangement was made that somebody else would do the job while Nag Mahashaya would get a commission. If you go through the life of great mystics like Ramprasad, like Ramakrishna, you'll find that similar arrangements were made by their employers to make their life easy so that they will not have to work for earning their livelihood. And the employer himself began to look after the financial affairs of the Nag family. Now, to one day, Durgacharan came to Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna asked him. He used to ask this question to all his close disciples. He asked him, "What do you think of me?" Durgacharan folded hands replied that I have understood that you are this supreme being, none other than through your grace I have understood this. And Ramakrishna was very much pleased. You see, this was your one test of Ramakrishna. He would ask very often, "What do you think of me?" So long as the disciple would not say that I think you as the greatest ideal, I think of you as God Himself incarnated, he would not be satisfied. He would not be assured about his spiritual progress. So Ramakrishna in this case was assured. One day he thought intensely about renouncing the world and become a sannyasi. But he went to Sri Ramakrishna to have his advice on this matter. As soon as he reached there, Sri Ramakrishna began to say in his spiritual mood, you see, what is the harm in remaining in the world? You see, if the mind is in God, if you are unattached, there is no harm in living in the world. You see, remain in this world like the ancient saint come king Janaka, and you will be an example to the worldly people, to the householders, how to live the life of a householder in a spiritual way. So he was astonished that without asking any question, Sri Ramakrishna could read his mind, and he followed this advice throughout. Once Swami Vivekananda himself, during his visit to Belur Math, requested him to stay in the mott itself. He repeated this advice of Ramakrishna and refused to stay in the mott. So throughout his life, he lived the life of a great yogi, being a householder. On 8th February 1891, there was they call it Ardhodaya Yoga. It happened on that day. And people believe that if you take a dip in the Ganges, you will have a huge amount of merit. If you have committed sins, all your sins will be washed off. This is a belief. A few days before this Ardhodaya Yoga, Nag Mahashaya returned to the village from Calcutta. His father was furious. People are selling whatever they have to be able to go to Calcutta to have a dip in the Ganges, in the Ganga. And you have come back here. What sort of spirituality, what sort of religion you have, you say. So Nag Mahashaya again tried to go back to Calcutta, but he could not, you see, enter into the train because of rush. He came back home. And the father, as usual, was furious seeing this. He simply said, Nag Mahashaya, that if I have true devotion, Mother Ganga herself will come here. And on that day, 8th February 1891, he was seated with some devotees. One of them noticed that from one corner of the courtyard, a spring has come out. It is flooded, you see it soon flooded the area. So this, you see, it was the time of Ardhodaya Yoga. Hearing the commotion, Nag Mahashaya himself came there and, you see, began with folded hands, doing your eulogy of Mother Ganga, who through her grace had come herself there. And the whole village gradually gathered there to have a dip in that mysterious river. Swami Vivekananda later heard about this thing upon his return to the country. And he said that great souls like that, you see, when they will something, you see, the physical nature has to follow it. You see, they are so great that nature obeys their command. So this is an event, a great event. And when I went to Devbhog, a few days after the liberation of Bangladesh in, in the year 1972, January, I went there. And from Dhaka, I went to Devbhog to have a look at this your place where Mother Ganga appeared. There's a small statue. I do not know what has happened to that place now. That day itself, I met a minister of Bangladesh, but I looked at him. I did not broach the subject of Nag Mahashaya's property being maintained correctly, etc., because I understood that he would not appreciate this thing. So this is a memorable thing in the life of Bangladesh. From 1896 onwards, the plague, which appeared first in Bombay, began to appear in Calcutta also. There are a few cases here and there. Some doctors were declaring it as plague, but this plague took a severe toll of lives in 1898. People began to leave by thousands this city. And the employer of Nag Mahashaya also left the city, but he kept the property under the charge of Nag Mahashaya, who was a faithful man. When the plague subsided, he returned after a few years, and Nag Mahashaya returned him his property. You see, he was just a custodian. Now I shall enter into a series of anecdotes in the life of Nag Mahashaya. Once he came home to the Bhog, and he saw that a cow was straining itself to get hold of a pumpkin plant. Nag Mahashaya went there, released the cow, which was tied with a rope, and soon the cow finished the plant. Dindal saw it and was furious. You yourself do not earn anything, and you are harming the household. You see, why do you do it? You have given up your medical profession, and how do you manage your life, etc. So Nag Mahashaya replied that don't worry about those things. God Himself will take care of me. Nag Mahashaya, Dindal replied that yes, I know. You will go naked and will live on frogs. Immediately, Nag Mahashaya stripped himself and found a dead frog in the courtyard and began to eat it. And he said to his father that I have fulfilled both of your wishes. Now don't bother about these things in your old age and take the name of God and try to live in a spiritual way. Seeing this, your behavior, Dindal was horrified and told to Sharad Kamini, from now onwards, you should not say, interfere in any way in his manners. He thought that he has gone mad. Another incident is that he was not to criticize anyone, but once through inadvertence, he did it. He criticized someone. Immediately when he recognized that he had done this, with a stone he was hitting his head. It began to bleed, you see, profusely. And it took a long time for the healing of the wound. Another occasion, your he visited Sri Ramakrishna a few days before his passing away, and he heard Ramakrishna saying that he would like to have some amulaki fruits, which are tiny fruits, very healthy, many medicinal qualities. But it was not the time of amulaki. The season was not for this. But Nag Mahashaya thought like this, that this word amulaki from the lips of the master. So there must be some amulakis somewhere. He began to search. 2 days of search did not yield any result. On the third day, he got a few amalakis from a tree in a certain garden and came with those fruits to the master. The master was pleased and he asked the Holy Mother to prepare a simple food dish for him. But it was the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi. Devout Hindus, they fast on those days. So Sri Ramakrishna himself took something from the food prepared by the Holy Mother. So it was prasad then, you see, and then Nag Mahashaya took that food. He is not to use salt or sugar in his food to curb his desire for good food. He gave up wearing shirts or putting on shoes. So, seeing those things, you know, his friend Girish Babu, Girish Chandra Ghosh, said that Nag Mahashaya has given such a knock on the head of his ego that his rascal ego cannot raise its hood anymore. Now, after Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, it was reported that your Nag Mahashaya had stopped eating, has completely fasting, thinking that there is the use of giving food to a body through which one has not been able to have God realization. Swamiji heard about this. Immediately, two brother disciples he went to Nag Mahashaya's place and said that he would like to have a lunch here. So Nag Mahashaya had to cook something and offer them food, but himself he would not eat. Through great persuasion, Swami Vivekananda was able to make Nag Mahashaya eat again. There was once visitors at his home, and Nag Mahashaya used to suffer from leg pain. Since there was nothing, no rice, no groceries in the house, he went to the market to buy something. And while returning with the great load of rice on his head, he had again this pain. He fell on the ground and was lamenting, saying that, Master, why did you ask me to remain at home? The living gods are there at my home, and I am having delay in rendering service to them. And when he had a little strength, he again got up and slowly went to home and begged pardon of the visitors for the delay in food. In rain and darkness, two guests once came to his house. He gave them food, and since the only room which was correct, that means there was no leaky roof, that was their bedroom. So they offered their own bedroom to the two guests and proposed to the wife that let us pass the night under the eaves and do japa. So the whole night was passed in this way, to do Atiti Seva. Atiti is God Himself, Atiti Narayana. A roofer was engaged once secretly by Sharat Kamini because Nag Mahashaya would not allow any man to work in the sun to repair his roof. She thought that it would be finished quickly and her husband would not notice it. But Nag Mahashaya came to know about it. He saw that the roofer was there and he began to lament. began to lament that for my comfort a man is toiling, etc., and was hitting his head. Seeing his agony, the roofer had to come down. You see. He fanned him and gave him the whole day's wages and asked him to go away. See, I have told you that it is not easy to play the role of the housekeeper of the saint. The Sharat Kamini had all these difficulties. East Bengal is very often in the monsoon there is inundation. Say. And the only way to go to different places or for shopping was by boat. But he used not to allow the boatman to row the boat. He insisted on himself plying the oars. On another occasion, a devotee came to see him in rain and in flood. He swam a certain distance, and it was night, so he was, it was cold, and so he came, and Sharat Kamini gave him a new cloth, this visitor. But there was no your dry wood to which can be used for cooking. So Nag Mahashaya himself began to cut the pole, one of the poles on which, say, the roof is standing. It is a supporting, thing. So to cut it, he said that this man risked his life in the night to come to see me because there are snakes, venomous snakes at that time. And should I not sacrifice a little for this man? There was a fire in the neighbor's house once. It was only some 15 meters away. And Sharat Kamini naturally became afraid. She began to take out the things from the house, the bedding, etc. But Nag Mahashaya, with folded hands, began to say that you do not have any faith. This is fire. That means Brahma himself has come. Because you should worship him. And he began to dance in the courtyard, saying that if God protects you, no one can destroy you. And if God decides to destroy you, no one can protect you. And finally, his house was untouched by the fire. On another occasion, a few European officers from Narayanganj jute mill came to the village to hunt birds. So they were shooting the birds. Nag Mahashaya heard the sound, went to see that, and the Europeans were reloading their guns to shoot again. With great humility, he asked them to stop it. They would not stop, and they did not understand what he was saying. So finally he jumped upon the Europeans and with superhuman strength snatched their firearms. They were very angry, especially in those days. India was under British rule. They wanted to sue him, but then through another worker of the jute mill, Nag Mahashaya returned the firearms to the officers, and this man explained to them the saintly nature of Nag Mahashaya. So they did not return again to the village for hunting birds. A fisherman, a fisherman was going by the street, and Nag Mahashaya came across him and saw in his basket live fishes. He bought all the fishes and released them to the pond. Once a cobra appeared in the courtyard of Nag Mahashaya, and Sharatkamin Devi wanted to kill the cobra. It is a very venomous snake. But Nag Mahashaya with folded hands said, "Oh, the goddess of snake, you see, your place is in the jungle. Please go there." And he began to walk to the jungle, and the snake followed him without harming him. On another occasion, he gave his bed as usual to a visitor in the night, and the couple, they were sleeping in the kitchen. A cat entered into the kitchen and scratched the white of his left eye. You see. So everyone, the visitor, the wife Shraddha coming, everyone was alarmed. You see what has happened. But his eyesight was intact, you see, fortunately, and he remained unperturbed. On another occasion, he was washing his feet in a pond when one of the toes in the left foot, was, you see, a snake came and bit it. So it was bleeding, and Sharat Kamini naturally was anxious, but he was unperturbed, saying that don't be afraid, it is only a snake of the water, you see, it is not venomous. It thought that my toe was a food, that's all. A middle-aged widow once began to visit Nag Mahashaya frequently. Nag Mahashaya understood her real motive and remarked to Sharat Kamini, look here, even your dogs, vultures, they would not touch this body, this ugly body, and she is so much attached to this. Sharat Kamini asked the lady not to come again, and in the course of time, the lady changed her ways. Girish Babu was his great friend, and they both admired each other. He gave him a blanket once. Out of love for Girish Babu, he accepted it, but he used not to use this blanket, he used to keep it on his head. Hearing this, tactfully, Girish Babu had the blanket returned to him. You see. Once he visited the Holy Mother. The Holy Mother gave him a mango, gave him a mango to eat. Instead of eating, he was rubbing the mango on his head. You see. It is out of you see, bhakti, upsurge of bhakti that he was doing it. You see. Then the Holy Mother herself fed him and she gave him a cloth which very often he used to tie on his head. Once a rich man in the presence of your Nag Mahashaya began to criticize Sri Ramakrishna. He humbly requested him to stop. He would not stop. He took his shoes, this man's shoes, and was beating him, you see, and asked him to leave the place. You see. The man understood his mistake and later on he begged pardon for his behavior. So once coming by boat to Belur Math, he was coming by boat, and as soon as the monastery building was in sight, he bowed down in reverence. Seeing this, other passengers they began to criticize the monks. He became furious, you see, in hearing this, that you are, you see, your whole attention is for satisfying your lust and greed. You see, what do you understand of monks? You see, so seeing his wrathfulness, they were so much afraid. They asked the boatman to anchor the boat and you see, allow them to get out of it. So such things, you see, Vajradapi Kathorani Maduni Kushumadapi, it is said that the great ones, the you see, it is difficult to understand their minds. There are certain times, you see, they are more harsh than the thunder and softer than the flower even. Sarchandra Chakraborty, you say, whose compositions was a great Pandit, you say, scholar, Sanskritist. He used to work in the postal department. He was a devotee of Nag Mahashaya and asked him to initiate. Nag Mahashaya refused. He was extremely sorry. Nag Mahashaya said that, you see, Lord Shiva himself will be your guru. He will initiate you. Once Swamiji has come back from the West, he was in Alambajar Math, and Sarchandra Chakraborty was in Alambajar Math. After meal, he was taking rest. And he looked at Swamiji's, you see, lying on the bed, and It was the form of Shiva. He rubbed his eyes again and there was a mistake in it. And Swamiji himself initiated Sarchana. So these words, you see, what he uttered became true literally. That Lord Shiva initiated Sarchana Chakravarti. In December 1899, the news came to Calcutta that he has fallen sick with colic and dysentery, etc. And immediately Swamiji himself advised Sir Chandra Chakraborty to rush to this holy man and nurse him during his last days. 3 days before his passing away, he asked Sir Chandra Chakraborty to consult the almanac, and when a day was found out, is the correct day, he said that if you permit me, I shall take my journey on that day. With tearful eyes, Sharchanda reported the matter to Sharat Kamini. 2 days before his passing away, it was 2 in the morning, when he said that Sri Ramakrishna has arrived there to show him the places of pilgrimage. He had never been to a place of pilgrimage except Goya, where he went to do the funeral, rites after his father's passing away. So Nag Mahashaya said that you have visited places, many places of pilgrimage. Please name them one by one. So Hardwar, Prague, Varanasi, Puri, these things are mentioned, and as he was mentioning the name, he was seeing all these places and describing them. And Sarchan understood that he was witnessing the blessing of Sri Ramakrishna to his disciple. This great soul passed away on 27th December 1899. Swami Vivekananda said that the whole of East Bengal is blessed because of the birth of Nag Mahashaya. And when he would visit Devbhog after his passing away, he put off his shirt and rolled on the ground, Swami Vivekananda himself. Yes. So such was the great life. Thank you.